What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Couple on Fire podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the 3 steps to navigating marriage at different life stages. And that's coming up
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Couple on Fire podcast. This podcast is for couples, for marriages, and for families within the Christian community. We exist to help break the stigma that happens within the Christian community. We're talking about divorce, we're talking about addiction, and we're talking about so much more. We believe that all this is possible in this life strictly based on the power of Jesus Christ and his ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's show. Listen, if you have never been on our show before, if you've never been here, welcome. We want to introduce our puppy dog, Stella. She's our French bulldog, so we want to make sure she makes a cameo each time she's licking the microphone. It's pretty gross. It's not an ice cream. But she's beautiful and wonderful, and she's the best dog we've ever had in our lives, and she's awesome.
And she had spinal surgery, and you can't even really see her scar anymore.
Yeah, she had spinal surgery. You can see a little bit on camera, a little more than you can normally.
Yeah.
But she's a sweetie.
Yeah, she's a good girl.
And she snorts a lot. So anyway, welcome to today's show. Like I said, we've never been here before. We are a Christian couple that have a podcast. Our interest really is to help you take your faith, family, and future to the next level. We believe in taking care of yourself, so personal development. We believe that you need to follow the Bible by all means to live a fruitful life. And so we just want to welcome you here. If you haven't had a chance yet, hit the share button or the like button, depending on where you are, or comment below and let us know where you're from in the world. If you're joining us today, or if you're on the rerun of this, if you're on the replay, let us know there as well. So each and every week, I like to start off our show with asking my beautiful wife if she has anything on her mind.
I'm ready.
You're ready this time?
I think.
You think?
Oh, no, I'm not. But that's okay.
Why? Why? I want to know behind the scenes on this one.
I'm like, have we done a podcast? Have we done a podcast since my birthday? Because I could say it was my birthday. We went out to birthday dinner. But we had one since then. So I'm assuming I talked about that last week. But
I don't think you did.
I turned 45 on the 26th of January.
And your phrase is?
What?
45. What's your hashtag?
Oh, hitting a new stride.
45.
Hitting my stride.
45.
Hitting my stride. So it's a thing that I started with Josh and I.
Yeah.
That
a few years back, actually.
Yeah. That on each of our birthdays do a rhyme with the age. So yeah, that was my hashtag this year. But I've been sick, and I wouldn't say it was really sick, but sinus like
head congestion
real bad since last Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Today's the first day that I actually my head's not pounding. I feel like my head's not floating above my body.
Yeah.
It's actually great. I spent the majority of the weekend in bed sleeping. So
snoozing it up. Yeah. So you actually sound normal today.
I know.
And you're blowing out all kinds of stuff to get it out of your head, but you're sounding better. You had a pretty good day today, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
that's great.
You're rough. So today we want to talk about, navigating different marriage life stages.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. So really there's 3 major different life stages. So we want to talk about each one. And then today is kind of unique. We want to talk about these life stages kind of from 2 different perspectives, which Kristy's going to share here in a minute. So
I'm going to share bad from my experience. Bad, good.
Bad and better. But there is 2 different major perspectives when it comes to different stages, life stages in marriage, believe it or not, because the world, for the most part, is kind of split into 2 when it comes to marriages, right? And so if you've followed our podcast for a while, you know that we are a blended family, right? So Kristy and I this is our second marriage. And so,
he thinks it's my second.
She's probably been married 14 times before. I don't really know, right? She's probably Egyptian too. Who knows, really, honestly. But we know that there's 2 major different things, right? Because we have been both, right? We've been in a nuclear marriage.
Yeah.
Right? A nuclear family marriage, right?
So we know more than you.
So, well, maybe you've had 40 marriages. We don't really know. And then we've also been in a blended family. So we know there's 2 different things when it comes to these marriage stages. So it's kind of cool. So we're kind of going to walk through those 3 things today. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Anything before we get started?
I'm ready.
Okay. And Kung Fu is on its way. She did Kung Fu hands. Okay. So the very first point when we talk about stages is the first stage is we call early marriage, right? Or the newlywed stage, right?
Mhm.
So from 0 to 5.
0 to 5
5
years.
Yep, 0 to 5, not 0 to 5 years old, because that's just weird.
Ew,
So 0
that's
to 5,
gross.
0 to 5
That's
years.
illegal.
That's illegal in 37 countries.
In our state, anyway.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, so early marriage. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So, like I said earlier, if we're talking about my nuclear marriage beforehand or Josh's nuclear marriage, our first marriage beforehand, we could tell you the 0 to 5 years what to do based off of what we did that was wrong, right? And then in our relationship, getting together, as far as our marriage goes, I feel like we did a lot of things right, but blending our family, we didn't do. But the marriage side of it, I feel like we did really, really well. So from 0 to 5 years, a lot of times you're dating that person, but like say you've never been married before, you're dating that person and you guys start to talk about like how many kids do you want to have and what does parenting look like to you, and you have all these types of things. So then when you first get married, the 0 to 5 years is kind of figuring that out. Maybe you have kids within the first 5 years and you guys are maneuvering through all of that. But in a blended family, it's like a lot of that you start dating and you're coming together, and sometimes you forget to talk about those things because it's like, he's a dad already, he should know. And she's a mom already, she should know. And you don't realize like how different the people could be parenting. So in a blended family, when you're coming together before you get married, but then especially at the beginning, if you're already married, it's too late, like 0 to 5 years, you should be talking about like what it looks like to you, intimacy, things like that.
And I think there's some staple things, right, when we talk about the 0 to 5 or the newlywed stage, whether you're in a nuclear family, right, your first marriage, or if you're in your second marriage and beyond, right, which we call like blended family stuff. So communication, right? So you guys need to establish how you're going to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
We have this big, large assumption in that, I know how to talk, right? I know how to communicate. And the funny thing is you may know how to communicate with people you've always communicated with, but this is a new relationship. You have to learn that communicating is very different with somebody new, especially in a blended family, because maybe communication in the previous relationship was really bad. And I mean, maybe it was mean and hateful and full of passive aggressive comments and all of these things, right? Which Kristy and I have experienced in our previous relationships. And so you kind of have to set the ground rules, all these grounding things coming into the newlywed stage to set the stage to moving forward. And I think a big miss, even especially in nuclear relationships, first marriages, is that we just assume like things are just going to kind of auto-correct themselves as time goes along. And it takes a little bit longer, I think, in a first marriage for that stuff to kind of come to a head of problems, where in a second marriage and beyond, like the fireworks can start almost immediately if you don't lay the ground rules of how we're going to communicate.
Agreed. I want people to show you I want you to show the people what you're drinking out of this evening.
Oh.
Like, what is that?
That is a mason jar. And
where did we get that mason jar?
I don't know.
I don't even recognize that mason jar.
I know it's like a purple tint to it. We have two of them.
Crazy.
We have two of them, and it's cool. But anyway, so you can't really tell on the camera.
I've never seen him drink out of this before. So
I didn't. Well, because the Coke Zero that I put in the refrigerator was not cold yet, so I had to put some ice in it.
Huh.
And I want to make sure the whole thing. Anyway, so I normally just drink it out of the can. So yes, it's only Coke Zero, so we're clear. Okay. I'm staying sober, right? Almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years this month. Okay?
This month, yeah.
So anyway, cheers to Coke Zero.
But what I think is interesting is 0 to 5 years. If it's your first marriage, you guys started dating and you guys are working out like the holidays while you're dating, right? Like how to spend it with your in-laws and what's going to go on. And then when you guys get together, it's still, if you're in your first marriage, it's not as difficult. It's difficult. You have to learn how to set healthy boundaries with in-laws. Like your marriage should come first before that. But it's pretty much, unless you're from a blended family, like your mom and dad, if they're remarried or whatever, but it's pretty much you go to your parents, he goes to his parents, and then you guys blend and you have to balance doing that. But once you blend a family too, it's like, okay, how are we going to balance the different kids' schedules with the exes, if the exes remarried with their parents, the ex-in-laws, the new in-laws, our in-laws, your parents, all of those types of things. So the 0 to 5 years, the bottom line is, though, learning the healthy boundaries and learning how to balance the schedules in a healthy manner. It's just a lot more intricate with blended families. But it's the same thing. So if you have it healthy in your first marriage and you learn that, it's going to be easier if you get divorced, which we don't promote, in your second marriage or your third marriage. But
yeah, and I think what Kristy's hitting on is so important.
the external factors.
The external factors, yes, those factors that you're not assuming is going to play a role, but I can tell you they always play a role.
Yeah.
Right? Like the ladies and how close they are with their mothers or their sisters, and things like that. Like, okay, well, does your husband know that you go to your mom's every single Saturday? And then when there's a child that's brought into the picture, maybe 2 years into your marriage, that now you're not just you going over there, you're taking the kids there and you're gone all day on Saturday. That may be your husband's only day off or your only day off. And it's
right.
Like, I want to spend time with the family, but this is what I've always done. And it's like, these are things like, you have to know that 0 to 5, that newlywed, you guys got to set a foundation right now and the communicating about these things. And so here's a couple tips, right? So we wrote down a couple tips for this season, right?
Ooh,
so establishing weekly check-ins is something that's super important.
And we've talked about this before.
We have talked about this before.
Because it's important.
But establishing it.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, we're starting with this and this is what we're going to do forever.
Yeah.
Right. On some degree, whether it's a weekly, we suggest weekly in the beginning, and then you can kind of phase that into maybe a monthly check-in if you have to, depending on how your communication comes together.
Yeah.
And then like something like you and I, like date nights, right? That's a forever fluid thing when it shouldn't be. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Date nights should be something that we establish early on. That is something that's just part of your regimen of what you do. It's kind of like working out, right? We don't work out to lose weight. You work out because it's what you're supposed to do to be healthy.
Right.
And if we don't weave those types of things in early, it becomes an option later. And if it becomes an option later, that can really be something that chips away at the strength of your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, like financial goals. Because there's, someone's always a spender, someone's always a saver.
The beginning of any marriage, this is really, really important to establish them right away. Like retirement plans, savings plans, like how what is each other's financial spendings that, spending habits, like should you budget? And that goes for, if it's your first marriage, if your second marriage, could be a huge stressor on the marriage if you don't get that,
established
ironed out in the beginning.
Yeah, like for Kristy and I, right? Kristy and I are both savers and spenders on the opposite spectrum. You're rolling your eyes.
We're not savers.
We are on weird things. Like you would save money for something that I normally wouldn't want to save money for, and that becomes a problem. Is my point.
No, the point is you're supposed to save money just to have it in the bank.
Right. And so I'm touching on something that's sensitive because it is, right? Because that's hard. These are things that you need to establish early on. Talk about these things early on. Like, okay, what are we going to decide on what's going to work for us moving forward? And that way, when we move into the next point, you already have some momentum going.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so number 2.
I want to do the Bible verse.
Okay. All right.
The Bible verse, Genesis 2:24. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. So discuss the significance of leaving and clinging, leaving your prior life and clinging to your new found life and what that's going to look like.
And that is all about
establishing. And pray about that. Prayer, a lot of prayer and meditation. About this.
And that's why establishing a foundation is so, so, so very important. Knowing that you guys are one flesh now and moving forward is important. Okay, number 2.
I think this is hilarious. I think mid-marriage, it's hilarious that mid-marriage is 5 years to 20 years.
That's mid-marriage.
That's huge, though, like time gap.
So that's number 2. Point number 2, for those that are listening, is mid-marriage, which is year 5 through year 20. That would be considered mid-marriage.
Carrie, you and Rob, you guys are in
Newlyweds.
Still newlywed phase.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right. So you want to roll with it? Mid-marriage. So talk about a little bit about mid-marriage, about how it is for nuclear families compared to blended.
Yeah, only I could talk about this because his first marriage didn't make it into the mid-marriage part.
It was super close, but it didn't though.
It didn't. Mine did.
Kristy hangs on to stuff even when she shouldn't. Okay, let's be honest.
Mine did. So part of the points is like balancing raising children, keeping the romantic spark, managing conflicts, and the importance of forgiveness. So I think it's important. That's why the start, like the first 0 to 5 years, is so important to establish a healthy foundation. And if you are 5 to 20 years within your marriage, it isn't too late, but it is harder because like in my first marriage, we ended up being married 10 years. And a lot of time, like Josh has used the analogy before, like if you put a rock on a train track and the train isn't moving, the train won't move. But once a train's going down the track, if there was a pebble sitting on there, it would blow right past it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Like if you set up a healthy foundation and healthy habits in the beginning, the train gets going with that. It's easier to continue. But if you set up the marriage with unhealthy habits or an rocky foundation, the train's going down the track already with that. For you to stop it, you can't just put a pebble on the train. You actually have to stop it, which it takes trains a long time to stop. So I think trains are a good analogy with that. So in my first marriage, between the 5 and 10 year mark, things just kept getting worse and worse and worse and harder and harder and harder because we didn't sit down and take the time to do check-ins or do date nights or talk about how we were going to have healthy boundaries and put that around our family. And we didn't make the marriage a priority. And that's why it failed. We both were kind of living still our individual selfish lives and trying to do it together. And it just didn't work out. And I know that was similar to yours. And so in our marriage, though, we've been married for going to be 11 years. This year. And so we're in this mid-marriage stage now, and we had a really solid foundation. So now that we're into our mid-marriage, it's like it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's so awesome because we were just talking about this today. Our conversations and our communication, we can talk about things even on a deeper and more vulnerable level than what you can in the beginning. Like your relationship in the beginning, there's things you still don't say to your partner for fear of hurting their feelings or it making it shaky ground, which is good. I think that's healthy. And then you establish the healthy foundation, but now we can start having talks about things like my true feelings about maybe some things that I wouldn't necessarily say out loud to him, you know? We talk about those and it just helps our relationship get stronger and stronger and stronger.
It does, because we've created such a safety feeling within our relationship that when those things are being brought up, we don't take them like personal, like it's an attack.
I use this term at work today, actually. For managers or leaders, it's important to hold a safe space for employees to be able to share and feel safe enough to share. It's the same in marriages. Like it's important for me to hold space for you to be able to come into and share and vice versa. And when we're both doing that, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening, number one, mid-marriage is it's like complacency, right? Like this is where complacency really sets in, and where in the beginning, if you don't have the proper level of work or foundation that you put in, this is where the marriage becomes splintered, and then you can easily just be okay in your marriage for the next 20 years. And never grow closer or better. And then when we get into the next one, you'll see when the kids leave the house, that's when everything falls apart, right? And we see it all. It could. Well, I'm just saying, if you allow complacency to get in the middle, and then you guys just kind of do your own careers, right? One of you just ends up raising the kids for the majority. You know, you end up doing your own things. Like on the weekends, you go hang out with your friends, go golfing, whatever. Ladies, you go do whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe golfing is your thing, you know, whatever it is. And then what ends up happening is you're like, no, we're fine. We talk just fine. Like everything's fine. But if
you're doing everything separate. You're not doing any hobbies together or nothing.
Yeah, but if you can say that your marriage is fine, that's a problem, I think. You know, if you can't say like my marriage is strong, my marriage is great, things are going good, not all the time, but overall, even in the worst times, I would say in our marriage, I'd still say we have a great marriage. Things are just not aligned in this moment, but I know that they'll become realigned again because we're going to work through those. And so, you know, we're talking about this season, we're talking about balancing raising kids, careers. You know, normally your careers are starting to take off. You know, how are you going to manage that? Making sure you guys still keep space and time for each other. I like that, making space for each other. You know, understanding the power of individual growth, but also growth that's together. And, you know, balancing these types of things, knowing that we're in this for the long haul. And what are we going to do to make this work for that long haul? You know, maybe some tips. Planning some away time, like a couple's retreat or couple's vacation is something during this time of your relationships that you need to make a priority, whether it's every year, every other year, every 2 years.
I mean, you did the 777 thing on it, which we've done a podcast on too, and that sparked a lot of controversy.
It always does, because people are like, oh, who can afford that? You just have to be creative with it. The idea is to make sure that you do it. And then make sure that you guys are spiritually growing and you're personally growing together, making a plan for that. And I think that's so important during this phase because it's easy to grow apart and stay apart during this phase, this mid-marriage. And especially if you're blended family, you're coming into almost the mid-marriage problems right in the beginning. And that's where working on these things is so important.
Well, I think also too, in blended families, if you have mid-marriage, if it goes all the way to 20 years, it's by that 20-year mark, the kids are probably all grown out, like, and out of the house. If you came into the relationship with children,
oh yeah,
they've already. So you guys
By
are
year
working
15.
on like empty nest syndrome and things like that. And that's why it's so important to keep the date nights, establish the healthy foundation in the beginning, the 0 to 5 years, so that you can continue it the 5 through 20, because there's so much transition for nuclear marriages during that time, but then also blended marriages, because you may have a baby together if it's your second marriage. You're starting over, but then all the way to 20 years, your kid then is an adult. So you guys have to go through that whole transition phase. That's why we've talked about so much about having hobbies that you do together, because by the time the kids get old enough and they move out, you guys are left with just living individual lives and you're not doing anything together because you haven't established that, except for the kids. The kids were the only thing you did together.
Which is scary.
So it's important to be intentional
Yeah.
and to put a spotlight on it. Like, don't shy away from it. If that's the way that your marriage is going now, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no, point of crying over spilled milk. Just talk about where you guys need to go from here and come together on it.
Yeah, why don't you read the Bible verse? I think I have a point to make with this.
You don't.
I do. It's right here.
Where?
Bible verse.
Oh, sorry.
It's right there.
Ecclesiastes 4:12. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken.
And for me, I think this Bible verse is so powerful for this stage of marriage, because we have to remind ourselves that we have to put God in the center of our marriage, and then remind ourselves that our relationship, the way that it should always work, is God first and then our marriage. This phase is real easy to put the kids next.
Yeah.
Real easy to say, okay, we're going to focus all of our energy on our kids, which means we're putting our kids before our marriage. It's real easy to do that, right? It's super easy to do that. But it is so destructive to do that. God does not call us to treat our marriages that way, nor our families. It's not designed to be successful in that manner. This is where we really need to focus on, like, okay, we're going to put God in the center of our marriage. Now, we can focus our energy on our kids, but still focus on putting our marriage first, which is something Kristy and I had to do, right? Our kids got a lot of attention. A lot of priority.
Of sports and all the things,
a lot of priority, but we never put them before our marriage. Our discussions were always made intentionally for us, things of that nature. So I just think that's really important to know that for that stage. All right, so stage number 3, last stage. We call it later marriage. That's the 20 plus years.
Later marriage. Later stages.
Later marriage stage.
20 plus years. So this is interesting. So his and I's marriage isn't in the later stages. My first marriage never made it to the later stages. But if you combined both of my marriages together, I would be in the later stage.
I
right?
don't think it really works out.
10 and 10. Going to be 11.
If I combined my marriage with her old marriage, then I'd be in the later marriage too.
Oh man, you're so funny.
Is that girl math?
Oh man, girl math. Yeah. So, so obviously though, all joking aside, we're not into the later stage of marriage. Neither one of us have been, but we can talk about it as far as you have to adjust, like similar to what we just said, adjust to being empty nesters, but having that be like the 5 to 20 could be just 1 or 2 years of empty nesting. 20 plus is typically 20 forever, 20 to 50, 20 plus 20 years to 50 years of marriage. So for like 30 years, right? So for 30, 40 years, you guys are adjusting to empty nest. And if you are establishing the healthy foundation, I know I keep going to that from the beginning, this is going to be a more natural transition because you guys have already figured out what hobbies you want to do together, how you're going to communicate, finances, all of those things. This could be really scary if you haven't established those things already, because you could be living two separate lives. You guys could have been spending money that you weren't telling each other about. And now that the kids have kind of went away and no one's focus is taken, it's only really on each other, these things could start bubbling to the surface, and you guys may have to start dealing with them all over again, which is fine. You can do it and you can get through it, put God at the center and all of those things. That's why it's so important to start in the beginning. But
it is, but we have to remind ourselves, like, this is more kind of the empty nester stage of life, right? So this is like nearing retirement, you know, all these things.
Yeah.
But it's real easy for, and we've seen it because we live in Michigan, right? And we live in, you know, General Motors, you know, car industry, right? And we've seen so many of these General Motors employee guys work for 35 years, 45 years, you know, not retire because they don't want to go home. They don't know their wife. And their wife, be honest with you, they don't want them home. They don't want you home. This is my house. I've made it my way for the last 50 years or 60, 70 years of our lives type of thing. I'm comfortable with you going to work every day. And then he goes to work every day and we're good with that. And that's such an unhealthy thing. You know, we have to remind ourselves, you know, we live probably half our lives empty nested, right? Our kids are 18, 20, maybe 22 years old, and then they're out, you know, and then we live another 25, 30 years if we're lucky on that aspect. But now we live without our kids. So the majority of our marriage really is spent without our children.
What I find interesting about marriages, some marriages that I see in this, I'm really starting to notice now because him and I are on the cusp of empty nesting. What I've noticed is the couples that are empty nesters, how much they don't know how to spend time together unless they're vacationing together. So it's like, oh, we have to go away for the weekend and go on this special trip, or we have to go on vacation, 2-week vacation, or they don't say it that way. They're just constantly doing that. But when they're at home, or they're not doing like these special trips, he's doing his thing and she's doing her thing, because they haven't figured out how to do life together unless they're doing something special. And to me, it kind of reminds me of The Bachelor. Like, you get in this relationship and it's like these special circumstances, and then all of a sudden real world kicks in and it doesn't last anymore because they've been in like this bubble.
It's like winning the lottery.
Right. And so it's like, you really need to figure out how do you live together? Like, are you going to be confident and comfortable just sitting and watching a Netflix series together, or, you know, going to the gym together, grocery shopping together, you know, just going on walks together, doing these types of things, and not having to have it be like this special circumstance for you two to be being able to spend time together.
You know, divorce rates spiked during the COVID time, you know, 2020, 2021 through 2022, they spiked. Why? It's because people were forced to spend time together, all the working from home stuff. People didn't know how to live together. They drove each other crazy. They didn't know, and that to me is sad. Kristy, you know, spent a lot of extra time at home, you know, during that period of time. It was great. I loved it. You loved it. Like, it was awesome. Like, we've learned, like, no, we are going to be each other's best friends. Not that there's a problem with going and together, having friends, and there's problems with going and doing things. I'm not downing any of that stuff. No. But I mean, in priority wise.
Don't miss the point of what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like, the point is
we love to vacation.
A lot. We don't do it as much as I would like, but we do love it. Because we spend money differently. But the point is that we have to focus on getting to know each other on a level where we can stand each other together. And this is a phase where sometimes it feels like it's too late by the time you hit this later stage of marriage. And it's not, though. You guys can come up with brand new hobbies you can do together. You know, start something new. Do something together new. Learn something new together.
Cooking classes, pottery classes, art classes.
I mean, there's a ton of different things.
Archery classes, golfing classes.
Golf. You could
like
go,
whatever.
Yeah, you could, whatever it is, right? You guys could do something. You could join a kickball team or something. You know, there's tops. There is tons of stuff that you could do. You just have to be willing to look outside your bubble and then say, hey, let's do these things together. Because it's tough. What did Rob say here? Rob says, as newlyweds, I love to hear people celebrating their 40th or 50th anniversary. With all the divorce, it is encouraging to see couples thriving.
Agreed.
Man, we couldn't agree more.
I love.
Oh, yeah. Marie says, dancing classes.
Yeah.
Yes. If we can get guys to do that, that is a great thing that they can do together. Which guys should be willing to do those things? I would told Kristy I'd love to do a dance class.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be fantastic. It'd be awesome.
Do a new, like, I know you and I would like to do like some kind of new training class where you get like a special certifications. Like if there's something that we could do together to be more
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Get our skydiving certificates.
Yeah,
We could be like skydiving trainers or something.
We have recorded this, and this is something that I want to do now. So Kristy is afraid of planes, so that might be really hard to do, but I'm down.
Like going down, what do you call it? Rappelling down mountains.
Like,
we could be trainers in that,
we could be downhill skiing instructors.
Oh,
snowboard instructors, water skiing
I got
instructors.
a bad foot, man.
This would make it a good foot. This would be great. Maybe we could just lop it off. Yeah, see, skydiving. Yeah, she's the same way. Man, what's up with you people not skydiving? Have you tried it? That's how I'm looking at it. Have you tried it?
It's scary.
You haven't done it. You know it's scary. Why don't you read our Bible verse for this one?
Where's it at?
It's right here. That's what I got.
You did?
I did.
Dang it.
I did.
Proverbs 17:22. A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones.
That's it. We have to have a cheerful spirit in this season of life and be hopeful and know that, God has placed us together into this marriage. We've lasted this long into a later marriage. What are we going to do to keep pouring into this and have a cheerful, hopeful heart to know that, this is the right person for me. And I say, focusing on each other, getting involved in church more, doing things, serving together in the same
serving
ministry.
That's something we should
serving together, though. So many people serve, but they serve separately. And not that there's anything wrong with having some separate serving. Like, I'm not down.
We serve separately in some areas.
We do. But serving together, there's such a positive thing with that.
Good job, Rob.
Rob says nobody should jump out of a perfectly good airplane unless you want to have a lot of fun, Rob. You fun sucker. Okay, you apparently don't like to have fun. Nobody likes to have fun. Somebody put down in the comments that you do want to go skydiving, that you think it's a great idea. I need somebody on my side here.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny.
Right? Joy, laughter, these are things that we have to embrace in this season of life.
What I think, and this sounds so cliche, but it is so, so, so absolutely true. Carrie said she'd jump. There you go.
Carrie, I'd jump.
So
Carrie.
need to pay attention to how much you don't smile.
Whoa.
Right? Like, because just walking around with a smile on your face increases your own like happiness. And I was thinking about it today as I'm driving to work, because I'm like this.
Driving to work?
Yeah, listening to,
you love traffic.
Like, I listen to an audible book.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I realized my face is just like, and I'm like, but if you smile,
yeah,
it automatically starts making you feel better. And it's something so, so simple, and we take it for granted because it's so simple that we don't do it.
Who's the iFit trainer that we did that series for?
John Peel.
No, not John Peel, the other guy.
Tommy Rivs.
Tommy Rivs. So if you don't know who Tommy Rivs is, he's like an ultra marathoner. He also does iFit training, right? So Kristy and I have an elliptical and a treadmill that we use.
I love him.
Yeah, he is. Well, she doesn't love him.
Yes, I like him.
He's a cool guy. We're going to be careful with that. Okay, we ain't trying to go there. Sorry, Tommy. Okay, she's mine.
Yeah.
So, but he says something in one of his workouts that when we're running, I'm dying, right? I'm on this treadmill and I'm running and I'm literally like, my soul is leaving my body. And he's like, you need to smile, right? Like, smiling changes. And here I am running, going, breathing heavy, trying to catch my breath and smile. But it's true.
It's so funny. John Peel just said it in the workout that I did this morning.
He did?
Yeah. That's what made me think about it.
I think it's true. I think it must. It's apparently it works, right? So we know that it works. So all these guys are like, okay, we know this. What you're doing right now sucks, and it's painful. And you don't like it, so smile through it. But it is true, though. Like, get up in the morning and smile at your spouse. Ask your spouse how they're doing in the morning. Kristy is actually really likes to talk in the morning a lot, and so she finds balance in that. But something that she does that I think is super sweet. I actually never even told you this before. Something that I think that's really sweet that you do.
Have you ever told me?
I don't think I've ever told you this.
Then maybe you shouldn't.
Why?
You just said it. You just said maybe you shouldn't tell me. You just said that.
Oh, did I say that? I didn't mean to say it that way.
Oh, gotcha.
No,
okay.
Maybe I should have.
Okay, tell me.
I meant maybe I should have. Well, you caught me right off guard because I'm like, I didn't say that. So something that you do in the morning, usually on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, because you get up earlier than me, you'll be sitting on the couch. And then I'll get up and then you go like, ah! You get this big like cheer, like this soft cheer that I'm awake.
Yeah.
And it's just very welcoming, and you're smiling big, and you're like, oh, yay, you're awake, you know? And so you're much happier in the morning. I wouldn't say I'm a happy person in the morning. I'm not negative.
You're not unhappy.
I'm
You're just
quiet.
and you can't talk to you too much because your brain isn't turned on
Yeah,
yet.
I'm not ready yet.
Correct.
But it is something that's really sweet, and it's really kind, and it does help. Like, you know, it's just very inviting, you know? And you've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
I don't even know when you started it. But,
I don't either, but
you know.
I just know when you walk out, I'm like, Pee-wee!
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But it is something that we can do intentionally, though, for our relationships, especially in the later years, right?
Yeah.
And saying, hey, we don't need special vacations or circumstances to be happy with each other. We can just be happy because you woke up today.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And be thankful.
Be thankful.
Attitude of gratitude.
So where are you in the marriage stage? Are you a newlywed? Are you mid? Or are you late? Where are you at? And how's it work for you? Are you in your second marriage? Are you in your first marriage? You know, how does it work for you? If there's anything that you feel like we didn't add today, please add it down in the comments, because people go back through and read these comments, and it can be an assistance. It can be some type of help to them. So,
Yeah. Amen to that.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. Okay. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. Listen, we're here every single Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go live. If there's anything you guys want to hear about, anything you want us to talk about, we have somebody that is telling us that they're going to come on and be a guest on our podcast because they made a suggestion, and we actually want to interview them about that. So that's going to be coming up here pretty soon.
We haven't scheduled it yet, though.
No, because they haven't reached back out and said they're ready.
Oh.
So I'm going to be nudging them here pretty close. They'll know who they are. They may or may not be on here. So, here, Marie says, divorced for 2.5 years now, but one day, hopefully, I will make it to the late stage. You will. You will, you know, and that's the idea right there. It's something that we're actually getting ready to start in our own church right now, is a marriage ministry. And someone came up to me after our Connections lunch this Sunday and said, you know, is this something that you guys are going to do for just marriages? And no, it's not. It's if you're interested in marriage, like, we should be preparing ourselves for marriage at any time of our lives, right? At any point. So
that's what we should call it. We should call it just marriage.
Just marriage.
Oh, yeah.
So funny. Carrie goes, we know who that's for. My last
Dun,
comment.
dun, dun.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. So, if there's anything you guys want us to talk about, anything pressing, anything like you want to just have conversations about, let us know. We want to talk about.
I know one thing that we could talk about is that in marriages, I'm 45. I just turned 45. And what women go through once they get into their 40s with their estrogen and their progesterone. I don't know how to say it. Progesterone. And it's big time. And you guys have to deal with it. I understand it, and I feel for you. But we have to go through it. And so maybe we should talk about that for the late stages of life and us ladies that are in perimenopause and the things that we have to go through. And maybe we could give you some tips and tricks, because you do a very good job.
Do I? You sent me a lot of TikToks about it. So
of how we can get through it together. You could listen to the period book that I just listened to.
I can't wait to listen.
Talks
to
about perimenopause, all this stuff.
Marie says, excellent. All churches need to invest more in couples. Amen, sister.
You changed the subject very fast.
Amen, sister.
I just want to point that out.
I'm not changing the subject. I'm answering somebody that's made a comment. But yes, we definitely should do something like that. You should write it out, figure it out what you want to. And then I think it would be great for women and men to listen together too.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Perimenopausal wives.
And perimenopausal men.
No.
Oh. Well, we experience it.
Perimenopausal wives and their men. How about that?
Okay.
Or husbands, I should say.
Whoa, and they're men.
Yeah, because that sounds plural.
Right,
That's bad.
Right, like your iFit trainer. He gets lumped in there with it. All that. So, all right, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday, 7 p.m. live.
Bye.